Welcome to the Net Profit Podcast with Ryan Kibler, your net profit CFO, helping business owners like you grow their net profit one episode at a time. And now your host, Ryan Kibler.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Net Profit Podcast. I am your host, Ryan Kibler, the Net Profit CFO. Today, I've got a very special guest with me, Elise Holtzman. Elise is the CEO of The Lawyer's Edge, really focused on helping lawyers, number one, grow their business, but also helping them develop as a leader. And that is what we're going to be talking about today. Elise, thank you so much for taking the time and coming on the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Ryan. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Well, I am excited to have you as a guest. I think great expertise and a lot of lessons we're going to learn from you today. But before we jump in, I want to give you an opportunity. Tell my audience a little bit about your background and kind of, a little bit about your journey, your story, how you got to where you are today.
So thanks for asking. I am a former practicing lawyer. I graduated from law school a very long time ago in New York City. And I wound up going to two large law firms, very, highly rated AmLaw law firms, to do commercial real estate transactions. I absolutely loved it. I loved doing deals. I think at the time I shied away from litigation because I was terrified of research. Do I know when I'm finished? And looking back, I probably would have enjoyed being a litigator, except for that part of it. But I did practice for 7 or 8 years, I think about 8 years. And like I said, I loved it, but I did wind up reluctantly leaving the practice of law. And it was really all related to being a woman, having babies at home, being married to another big law lawyer, having that crazy New York schedule where you're on all the time. And so law firms weren't really doing part-time back then. They were just starting to think about it. And there were not a lot of women mentors. There were not a lot of women in roles that I saw doing what I wanted to do, which was to be able to have a thriving practice and at the same time be able to focus on family life. And so, there were no women's initiatives, there were no coaches. I had never heard of coaching. And my firm, the second firm, was interested in trying part-time with me. So we tried it out and I did it for a while. It was supposed to be 40 hours a week for 80% of your salary, which, gives you an idea of what the hours were supposed to look like full-time. And ultimately, I came to the conclusion that it didn't work for me. I was really working more like 70 hours a week for 80% of my salary, simply because, as all the lawyers listening know, you can't just decide to punch a time clock and be a private practice lawyer. So as I say, I reluctantly concluded that this wasn't going to work, rightly or wrongly. I didn't have a lot of people to talk to about this issue. And so I stepped back from the law. Fast forward, a few years went by. I was home with family and kids, and I decided to figure out what my next gig was going to be. And while as I've said already, I love practicing law, I was not ready to go back to a situation that I thought was untenable. So I started looking around and I found out about leadership and executive coaching, decided that it was really at the intersection of what I thought I was halfway decent at and I really liked, and took a full year certificate program doing that. Once I finished that, I launched The Lawyer's Edge. That was almost 17 years ago. And ever since then, I've been working exclusively with lawyers and law firms to help them grow thriving practices and also to help them grow as leaders. So that's been an incredible journey for me. I've been very fortunate to do work that I love to do with really cool people.
Yes, very cool. And we're going to dive into the leadership side today. If you are needing some business development help, I would highly, highly, highly recommend Google Elise, because she's done kind of a business development talk on some other podcasts. So you can definitely find that out there. Today, we're going to dive into leadership development. And I think this is really hard for all business owners, not just lawyers, but really developing as a leader, especially as you grow a team, right? And I mean, it's hard. Especially if you don't have outside training.
Well, and most of us don't have outside training, right? I think that when you think about what we learn in school, we're learning, back in the day, we were learning the reading, writing, and arithmetic kind of a thing, depending on whether you are, what graduate school you go to or college you go to, they're teaching you specific subjects. You mature as a person, and maybe you have the opportunity to take on leadership roles, but typically no one is formally teaching you anything to do with leadership. And so what I say about, law school is that they certainly did not give us any business development training, and they certainly didn't give us any leadership training. You're supposed to go to your new job, whatever that may be, and figure it all out yourself. And one of the things that we see with managing partners, for example, of law firms or practice group leaders, or those kinds of folks that are kind of pressed into leadership, is that they're being asked to take on leadership roles because they're really good at the jobs they do. So, Ryan, you're a great lawyer. We really like you. The clients like you. You've got a good book of business. We'd like you to come practice group leader, or sit on the compensation committee, or be on the executive committee, or even become managing partner of the law firm. And I think that many people are just caught off guard. It's like, okay, that sounds great, from an ego perspective, from a, moving ahead, from a visibility perspective, from an appreciation perspective, this feels fantastic. I love being asked. I love that somebody thinks I'm good enough or worthwhile enough to be doing this, but I actually have no idea what I'm doing, right? I don't know what this job even looks like. And, being a leader of a practice group and being a really good lawyer are two very different job descriptions. And so I think that many lawyers get pressed into service, and it can become a rude awakening for them. It can cause a lot of stress. It can take them away from the things that they're really already good at doing, like serving their clients really well or building their books of business. And so I think it's really important for us as professionals to focus on, what does this even mean? There's a lot thrown out in the world about leadership. There are a gazillion books on leadership. If you Google leadership, you get literally like hundreds of millions, if not billions of results. But what does that mean for you as a person? And can you slow down enough to focus on your own career rather than just focusing on what it is you're doing every day for your clients?
Yeah. And I think, when the owner of the practice or whoever comes to you as the great lawyer and wants to move you into that leadership role, you're at a disadvantage, at least from my experience corporately. This is from several years ago, right? Same thing happened to me, right? Graded accounting, all the stuff, right? And then you move into the leadership role and you have someone else that you have to train. They come to you with a problem and you're like, oh yeah, it's just one, two, three, four. And they go, what? Right? And they are completely lost, not same skill set as you. And just replacing you one for one is not going to work because you're on a completely different level than the person that's coming in behind you. And I think that presents its own challenge as well. Like, not only are you trying to figure the leadership thing out, but you also have a challenge training your replacement because they're not with the same skill set as what you have.
I think that's a big part of it for people, is when they move up, having the right people who are reporting to them that they can grow, that they invest in, that they train, and understanding that their talents may be different, their skills may be different, their personalities may be different. And that is one of the leadership skills that many people understandably don't have. How do you grow a team around you? So that's one of the things that I think sometimes blindsides people. And, if it's okay, I'll just give you an example of a group that I've been working with recently. So
Yeah.
I was asked to come into a law firm and work. It's a little bit unusual for me, although I'm doing more of it, work with the leadership team, the professional leadership team, not the lawyers themselves. So for example, the director of HR, the director of operations, the director of IT, the director of marketing and business development, those sorts of people, because they were finding that these people are fantastic at what they do. They love them. They want to retain them. They think they're really good, but they realized that they really didn't have the management and leadership skills that they think would really support them in those departments. And so one of the things that I learned as I was talking to the people in the group is that each one of them seemed to have a different primary challenge. So one, for example, was struggling like you, fairly young, really, really good at what he's doing, but thinks it's easier to just do this stuff himself rather than delegating it out to other people. And so he was still remaining as an individual contributor rather than really leading the group or managing his people. And it leaves him no time to think about, what is the future like? How are we going to change this department to make it even better? Who do we hire? Are there skills that we need to learn, right? How are we interacting with the other departments to get them what they need? And somebody finally sat him down and talked to him about it, and he recognized it, but it was still really uncomfortable for him to do that. And so, this is a leadership opportunity for him to grow as somebody who is not just an individual contributor anymore, but is kind of marshaling people and resources to get the thing done, right? Rather than being the one who does it himself. Then, there's somebody else on the team who is very good at what she does, but also really mushy-gushy, wants to be friends with her people. And so she tends to not deal with issues as they come up. She never wants to criticize anybody, which means that she lets things go that really should, by all rights, be rectified. She sweeps difficult conversations under the rug so that if you look at the rug, there's like a big pile of something under the rug that you can't see. And she, again, started recognizing it more as we were having conversations, but realize that I'm the leader, I'm the manager, I'm the director, I'm the one, the buck stops with me, right? If nobody's having these if I'm not the one having these conversations with these folks and helping them grow, nobody's having the conversation with them. And, yet another person who sort of is a my way or the highway kind of a leader, and people definitely start, getting aggravated about that and don't necessarily feel like they have a great relationship with that person. Right. So there are so many different things that leaders can be struggling with, not because they're bad people, not because they're not good at what they do, but simply because nobody has ever trained them in these things and they don't have a lot of self-awareness. It's very hard. We all know, I mean, the whole definition of objectivity and subjectivity is that we can't necessarily see what other people see. And sometimes that's the good stuff. We can't see how great we are when other people see, I always say, like, when other people think you're fantastic, believe them, but also the things that we could be improving. And I think that it's incumbent on all of us to actually grow in our careers, not just in our individual contributor skills of, drafting a brief or negotiating a transaction, but how you show up as somebody who helps the organization move ahead.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of good things there. I would encourage everybody rewind like the last 5 minutes, listen to it again because there's a lot of good stuff in there. And I think the really hard thing, and even for me today in business, right? It's hard to delegate. It's a challenge. It's just not. I think it's not. When you're a high performer, it's not in you. It's not who you are. And at the same time, like if you step back and see the bigger picture, making a bigger impact, it requires it, right? And kind of, again, being able to lead a team and kind of strategize for the future, like it requires that you let some things go. And sometimes probably also requires that the worked product that goes out the door is probably not as good as what you would have done it, right? But you got to let your team do it.
That may be. So Ryan, I mean, I think a lot of this is mindset, right? And a lot of
Yeah.
people do feel the way you do. As you say, high achievers are high achievers in part because they've always been able to rely on themselves to make up their minds that they're going to do something and then to get it done, and not just to get it done, but to knock it out of the park and do it in an exceptional way. And so the mantra for high achievers, and I include lawyers in this, tends to be, if I want something done right, I do it myself.
Yes.
The list of bad things that comes from having that mindset is quite long, right? And so if we can shift the mindset to, when I want something done right, I delegate it to the person who is best situated to handle that, which isn't easy, right? It's like anything else. It's easier said than done. But when we can make that mind shift, it can really elevate us to a position where we are able to actually do the things that are the best for us to be doing. So what's the highest and best use of your time, right? Is the highest and best use of your time doing the little things, taking care of all the details, or is the highest and best use of your time something else? So when it comes to lawyers, well, first of all, I think for everybody, there's an overall thought here, which is this: what got you here won't get you there. So whatever role it is that you want in the future, and that might not be a title change, right? So in some organizations, there are a lot of title changes and people move quickly through the ranks, and there are a lot of ranks to move through. In law firms, we know there are not a lot of titles. So it may be associate, maybe counsel, maybe partner, shareholder, something like that. Maybe non-equity and equity. So there are not a lot of titles. So think about it in terms of role, not just title. Right. So role might be junior associate versus senior associate. There's a big difference in those two roles, even if the title is still associate. I have a course that I developed called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And the idea, the takeaway from this seminar is this: the skills, the behaviors, and the mindsets that have been so instrumental to getting you where you are today, to getting you the success that you currently have, are not necessarily the same skills, behaviors, and mindsets that are going to allow you to step into a different role and to succeed there. And so skills might be things like putting together a really great balance sheet in your case. So a skill might be drafting a document, negotiating a deal, making sure a deal closes, arguing a motion in court. Behaviors are the kinds of things that you do on a daily basis or some kind of regular basis. Those are basically habits, right? So do you wake up every morning and go straight to the gym, or do you do what I do and try to ignore the idea that exercise is even a thing, right? Those are behaviors. And then there are the mindsets. What are the attitudes that you have about what you're doing? What are the belief systems that you have adopted in terms of what you're doing? And that goes back to what you and I were talking about. So this mindset shift can be really, really important. And so I think that examining the skills, behaviors, and mindsets and literally writing them down on a piece of paper. What has gotten me where I am? Why am I so successful? Why do people think I'm so fantastic? And then on the other side of the piece of paper, write down the role that you want to step into or the role that you're in now that maybe you've just gotten into. And what are the skills, behaviors, and attitudes that are going to help you succeed there? Or what you suspect is going to help you succeed there, because you might not know. So some of it might be a little research. What does a junior partner at this firm have to do to be successful? Right? What does it take to become an equity partner in this place? Maybe that's a further investigation on your part. And then start to work on changing some of those, learning some of the skills you need, maybe changing some of those habits, adopting a different mindset. And the thing is, it's not easy, right? So even if we look at it intellectually, go, yeah, Elise, this is a great idea. So glad you raised the issue. I'm going to look at these things. And yeah, you're right. You know what? There are these skills, behaviors, and mindsets that I could shift in order to take on this role and be successful there. We're human beings, right? Who wakes up in the morning at age, 40 or whatever it may be and says, you know what? All that stuff that I'm really good at that's made me successful thus far, I'm just going to throw that out the window and I'm going to try something different. Like nobody does that. And also we're so busy. Most of us are so busy doing the work that we think we're supposed to be doing that we don't view ourselves as a project that we should take time for. Right. That's another thing, is we tend to serve other people over and over again and not necessarily focus on what we want to be doing for ourselves. So I think that, there's a lot to unpack here, but I think understanding that there is an exercise that you can go through that can help you figure out what is going to work for you going forward, maybe is a helpful place to start. And then with all of this, asking yourself the question that I raised a little bit earlier: what is the highest and best use of my time? Right. And that's where people, especially on the delegation piece, I'll go back to this piece for a minute. So that's a perfect example. Like the guy that I mentioned who, is running his department and saying, well, I'll just do it myself. That's not the highest and best use of his time. It seems like it is in the moment, because it's like, oh, no, I'm just going to, quick do this thing and get it done. But if he is to make an investment of time in his people, then over some time, and probably not as long as he might think it would take, he is now going to free himself up to manage his people and have a really solid team, to look at the near future and the long-term future and think, how can we grow this department to be something that's really, really valuable for the people that we're serving and ultimately impact our clients in a really big way. He doesn't have time for that long-term visioning or that big picture thinking when he's running around dotting every I and crossing every T. So those are some of the things I think about when it comes to leadership. That some people naturally step into leadership, but it doesn't mean that they're good at all parts of it. And so I think that, an inquiry, a self-inquiry, and then making up your mind that you're going to learn certain things is really important. And not to just say, well, I had my education a few years ago and now I'm just going to learn on the job, it'll all come to me. You have to be more proactive about than that, at least in my view.
Yes. And, I would also say the road is not necessarily easy, right?
It's
Lot
not.
lot of work, a lot of headache sometimes, right? And at the same time, if you're not innovating and changing, if you're not getting better, what are you doing? Right? There is no, oh, I'm just going to stay where I'm at. I think if you're not getting better, if you're not continual learning, you're not getting to that next level, I think you're getting worse. Right? I don't think there's a staying stagnant and just let me just stay where I'm at. Right? I don't think that exists because the people around you and the rest of the world is still going to move.
Think that's true for every industry. I mean, legal is what I know best, but I think that's true for every industry. When you look at the pace of change, and look, the pace of change, everybody could accuse lawyers of being slow when it comes to the pace of change. And I think that that's fair. And yet, all of us are having to adapt and learn and grow faster than ever simply because of the pace of technology. And also because we are much more easily able to see what our competitors are doing. Right. I mean, when I got started, and I'm definitely dating myself here, but when I got started, I mean, I had a Wang computer on my desk. It was like the black screen with the green stuff flashing on it, the green words and that sort of thing. And so there were lawyers that, were in their 50s and 60s and were simply unwilling, this computer thing, like, are you kidding me right now? Right. And unwilling to take it on. And so we know that the world changed because of everybody having a computer on their desk, let alone everybody having a computer in their hand now. And so the world has changed rapidly. And I think that it's not just about technology. It's that technology has illuminated all the other ways in which we need to adapt and keep up and grow. So I believe that no matter how old you are, no matter what your age is, I mean, I'm still learning at my stage. I'm learning about artificial intelligence. I'm using AI tools almost daily at this point. Maybe it is daily at this point, right? I'm taking continuing coaching education classes, partly to keep my credential up, but partly because I'm learning so much about how coaching is changing globally. So I just think, we can give lip service to, oh yeah, I'm always learning and growing. But are you learning the things that you need to help make you better at what you do and also allow you to do the things that you might want to do next? Maybe you want to do something different. Maybe taking on leadership is exciting for you. Maybe becoming a rainmaker would make a huge difference for you and would just make you feel more excited about what you're doing and more alive about, your chosen field. So this is just a reminder to people who understandably are so busy that sometimes they don't think about these things, that it doesn't take as much time as you think it would. It just takes some targeting and some making decisions. And then once you start doing, you don't have to figure it all out yourself, right? There are other people that can help you figure it out, whether it's sponsors, mentors, coaches. You can take courses, you can read books, you can listen to things, you can have a little chit chat with ChatGPT or Harvey or whoever it is you're using these days, and find out how to move forward more quickly and in a direction that is going to make you happy.
I like that. I like that a lot. And kind of, zoom out, take a 10,000-foot overview where you are, where you want to go. How often do you think, that should be done? Or what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, it's a fair question. I mean, I think that the big picture piece of it, I would love everybody to be doing this a minimum of once a year, maybe twice a year, to just have, you can call it like a little reinvention convention, have a little reinvention convention with yourself. And it could be, 2 hours that you set aside where you've just decided that, whatever ringing, pinging, and dinging is going on your, technology or people standing in your office door, that you're just going to let people know you're not available. Maybe go out to a restaurant, take yourself out to lunch, whatever it may be, but sit down and ask yourself the question, am I doing the things I really want to be doing? Is there something that I want to grow into or be doing differently? And then make a plan. In terms of the planning part and the taking action part, I am a big believer that people should make power hours with them for themselves. I talk about that a lot in business development, because the number one, I get a lot of objections of why people, oh, you don't understand, Elise, I can't develop business because, right? And there are so many reasons that come up over and over again. One of them, of course, is I have no time. I am so busy. You just don't understand. I am billing so many hours. I have so many client requests. Yes, you are super, super busy. It's not a doubt in my mind that you're super busy. And you have the same 24/7 that everybody else has. So I'm a big believer that, as I said before, being proactive, being intentional is super important. And so if you can schedule a power hour with yourself or even a power half hour, I'd be happy with a power block. If you could do that for yourself twice a month, once a week, something like that, where you're just checking in with yourself. It could be used for strategy. It could be used for execution. So it could be, okay, what's on my list? Did I do it? Oh, I need to reach out to Ryan, because I need to hire somebody to help me with this stuff. I need to reach out to so and so. I need to do some online research to figure out if I want to take this course and put it on my calendar. Right. So there's the big picture strategy stuff. And then there's the little stuff that falls through the cracks that keeps us from actually getting stuff done. So I would say maybe once a year, twice a year, have this check in with yourself. Am I heading in the right direction? And then on a regular basis, be setting aside little chunks of time where that's sacred time for you to be working on your goals. And it's remarkable what you can get done in a half hour a
Yes.
week, or even an hour every 2 weeks or something like that, where you just focus on you and executing on the things that you decide you want to get done.
Yes, I do that. Half hour for me every week on Mondays. What did I get done last week? What's big on my to-do list this week? Always at the end of, my Monday so that I know where am I going, what am I doing this week. Yeah, I mean that I will say that half hour for me that's booked out of my calendar is huge. And I completely agree with you. It is amazing what you can get through in just a half an hour. And
Yeah.
then,
And Ryan, you're pretty unusual because unfortunately, most people don't do that, right? Because we get so aggravated about what we have to get done and we try to squeeze in, I'll just squeeze in one more thing. And so I encourage people to listen to you and to do what you're doing. And so for you, maybe it's Monday. For someone else, everybody is different. And what I would say is conduct some mini experiments, try it out. Somebody might say, oh, you know what? Tuesday at 8:30 is perfect for me. I'm not stressed out because I got stuff done on Monday. I still got the rest of the week coming. So then I really think things through and try to get some things done. Another person might say, are you kidding? On Tuesday morning, I'm crazed. I've got so much to do. So I'm going to
yep,
do it on Friday afternoons, right? Everybody, but you've got to play with it a little bit and don't throw in the towel when you tried it once and it doesn't work, or don't throw in the towel when you did have to move it. Don't cancel it. You did have to move it because some emergency came up.
yep. And I started on Friday afternoons, right? It was one of the last things I did before I thought I was going to call my week done, right? But then I'm sitting down and it's like, okay, what did I get done this week? What am I doing next week? What's on my do not do list? I always make those kind of three sections. And then I've just made this to-do list, and of course I'm getting started on Saturday, right? Like if you
Right.
do it on a Friday afternoon, don't, some people are that way, right? Like, I don't throw around the terminology workaholic. I don't like to diagnose myself that way, but that's why I shifted it to Monday afternoons because then so I completely agree with you that I had to try it. I had to experiment with it, shifted it to Monday afternoons, and now I have the rest of the week to get done what's on my to-do list, and I don't feel like, bad about it. And usually by Friday, then I can be done with the stuff. So I'm not bleeding into Saturdays.
Yeah, it's a great example. And so I think everybody listening has the opportunity to figure out what works best for them. Like I said, play with it a little. Did you say you have a do not do list?
Yes, so that's
I know
very interesting.
now I'm interviewing you. I'm sorry.
No, all
I
good.
think that's great. I
I'm
think
happy.
people need to hear about this.
Yes, I'm happy to share. So, what did I get done last week? So I can look at things that I accomplished. I think that's important too, because as high achievers, like we just blow through things, we crank things out, and then we don't realize how much we've gotten done and how much we've achieved. And taking a minute, looking at that, and really kind of soaking that in, I guess, I think is good. Um, and then I make my to-do list and prioritize it, tackling my top two or three things. And then there's as a business owner, as a high achiever, there's always projects that I want to do that are really fun for me that don't necessarily move the needle forward in a big way. And if they don't make the top two or three on my to-do list, they go on my do not do list so that I am not spending my time there when I have other things that I know are more important.
Mm, I
So,
love that.
yes, I do have a do not do list. Like, and for a long time, like I needed a new website for my business, right? And it was on my do not do list because I could, get in and play with it. And then I'm like, nope, not doing it. I'm going to hire somebody. It's on my do not do list. And so, you know, again, back to your point of what's the best use of your time? Is the best use of my time building a website? Absolutely not. No way. Like there is no math that justifies that, right? just hire somebody, right? For the hours that it would take me to do compared to what I could pay somebody else, hire somebody. So things like that definitely get on my do not do list so I can focus on the to do
Yeah, I
list.
mean, this is great because it's a perfect example of again knowing the highest and best use of your time. And even if it's a little bit fun for you, and even if it's a
Yep.
good place to procrastinate some of the other stuff, it's not going to help you move your business forward and have you be the business owner that you want to be and be able to do the kind of work that you want to do. So these are the kinds of things that I encourage people, particularly lawyers, because that's who I'm working with. I encourage lawyers to be thinking about and taking time for, because your career isn't going to develop, your practice, let's say business development part of your practice isn't going to develop unless you're intentional about it. It'll develop part way, but it may not get where you want it to get, and you may not be doing the things that you want to do. And what I think is, as a coach, one of the things that I think is unfortunate for people is having too many regrets, right? I
Yeah.
don't want my clients to look back and say, gosh, if I had just focused on this, or if I had even just asked myself the question, I would have known which direction I really want to go in. So while it does take some time, I do think that your advancement as a leader, and we're talking about this as leadership, but I think that this is also a lot about simply advancing in the way you want to advance, getting what you want to get out of your career. I think it's really important to do some of this inquiry, and not
Yep.
just be running on the treadmill all the time, but to slow down, take the time to think about it, and then you can go in a particular direction for a long period of time or a short period of time, reevaluate, am I going in the right direction? Am I doing the things that I want to do? And to your point, are there things that I can be hiring out to other people so that I can get to focus on, what you might call your core genius or whatever it may be,
Yep.
right? Everybody's got something that they're great at and that they love. And so how do you get to focus more of your time and energy on that and develop other people around you, whether it's an internal team, an external team, whether, you've got outside consultants or vendors or whatever it may be, to do the things that you really shouldn't be doing, even if they're the things that need to get done.
Yes, I completely agree with that, right? And the regret thing is that like really resonates with me, right? It's like, what if I don't take a check-in, right? And I don't get the things done that I really want to? I don't remember who said it. It's a famous quote is like, hell is meeting the man that I could have been, or something like that, right?
Yeah.
I agree with you. Regret can be a problem. Did I get done what I wanted to get done? For sure.
Right. And we probably don't all get done everything we want to get done. I mean, if I had the option to, never die and live for a very long time, I might take that on because there's so many things that I want to do. And I think that recognizing that we're always growing and we're always changing is important. And at the same time, as you say, what can I do with the
Yep.
time that I've been given? What do I want to do with the time that I've been given? And that takes some thought, some intentionality, and some proactivity.
For sure. Well, Elise, this has been great. I think my audience, I hope they've picked up a ton. I know I've picked up a ton. Where is the best place for them to connect with you, work with you, get help on this leadership thing? Where is the best place for them to go?
So our website is a good place to start. So that's thelawyersedge.com. I also spend some time on LinkedIn, so you can find me there, Elise Holtzman on LinkedIn, or you can just email me at elise@thelawyersedge.com. And I would love to connect with anybody, whether you think you want to work with me or not. If you have something you want to chit chat about, I'd be happy to do that.
Love it. That's awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for taking the time and coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank
And
you.
until next time, everybody, go accelerate your profits. See ya.
Thank you for listening to the Net Profit Podcast with Ryan Kimler. Make sure to subscribe or follow the show on your favorite podcast app. Don't forget to check the show notes for our guest contact information and to connect with Ryan on his website, netprofitcfo.com.